y'all. It's season 3 of the Be Your Own Kind podcast, and we humbly thank you for tuning in. Be Your Own Kind's mantra is there is never an inopportune time to be yourself. In other words, be you without apologies. In this season, I will be presenting nuggets and interviewing individuals that are creating their lane and rocking it. Be sure to check out the featured businesses in the description box and follow us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and pretty much every platform. Okay, now let's take flight. Well, top of the morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 32. I currently live in Maryland as of right now, living with some family. Within the last 7 years, I've done a lot of traveling. I lived in I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I lived in Ohio, upstate New York, and now Maryland. I like being that type of journeyman that doesn't have any restrictions to himself, so he can kind of move wherever he wants. No kids, no marriage, and kind of like that. I'm into sports a lot, and I've been into getting into the radio podcast world since I was 13, 8th, 9th grade, just having those inspirations. Although it was with sports, and I really wanted to get into sports, commentary and stuff like that. But as I got older and I learned more, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to learn. I don't want to do that. I want to do stuff about where you can talk about life, where you can talk about stuff more than sports, because in life there's more than life than just sports. So that was one of the biggest things.
More than life. Well, in my opinion, I agree with that. I don't know anything about sports, but I'm around a lot of sports enthusiasts. When you wanted to be a commentator, what sport would you have wanted to commentate?
I think back then it was probably football, because I just loved it. As I've gotten older, it was definitely basketball.
It's 11 o'clock.
Actually, me and the guys are going to be making a basketball podcast soon, just because we talk about it so much, and we're in a fantasy basketball league together, so we're always talking about it. And when I grew up, though, football was the thing. My dad, my brother were on the football, and I thought that it was only right that I just continued the family male tradition of playing football, although I wasn't as good as my dad and brother.
Yeah, I think mostly basketball. I think a lot of people talk about basketball around me. Like for the Super Bowl, I only watch the halftime show. I'm not wasting time watching the game. I have no idea what's going on.
That was a good halftime show. That was a really good halftime show.
Yes, it was.
Gen Z, millennial. It was so cool. I loved how everything was done, and I have to give them. I got to give the NFL props, even though when it comes to stuff like that, I usually don't. But they definitely did it right this time. This was probably the biggest halftime worth talking about since the Jackson.
I agree with that. And then people trying to come at 50 Cent, I'm like, he was hanging upside down. I don't care. And who is the same size they were 10 years ago anyway?
Listen, the guy's what, like 45?
Right.
50, something like, guy has more money than all of us can count. So it doesn't even matter. And then on top of that, he's doing something that was like iconic in our time in that time period for music, music videos. Who cares? Who cares? I loved it. I wish he would have stayed up there longer, honestly.
I agree. And I saw a video where they were showing him flipping himself upside down while Dr. Dre and Snoop. And I'm like, how many 40, 50 years, I don't know how old he is, can do that? How many people can grab a bar and flip themselves upside down?
I'm gonna tell you right now, very, very few. I know a lot of 40-year-olds, and they can't do that.
Right. So what they not gonna do is try to play on 50 head. That's what they not gonna do.
Yeah. I heard a really interesting stat about him, or a really interesting fact about him. When I think it was like In the Club or Candy Shop came out, he had over 20 million in the bank, and he was living in an apartment. And I'm like, that's the way to do it, right? Like, that's the way to do it. You don't need these big houses are all nice, but well, first of all, a lot of these people don't even spend a lot of time in most of these rooms of these big houses. So right. It's all for show. But I'm fine with it. Like, I got $20 million in the bank and I'm gonna live in an apartment. Okay. I mean, granted, he was still living in New York City, so he was still paying an arm and a leg, right. But not the arm and a leg that it would cost for an apartment or for a mansion. So, hey, props to him. He was smart with his money.
Well, most people with money live modest like that, though. I think the people that like showboat, they have the least money. Unless you're a billionaire and you just have to, go along with the lifestyle. But most people, like I've met people who have rundown shoes and a t-shirt and jeans, and then you look them up and they're like millionaires.
Yeah, like who is it?
Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah, as I was shaving, I was listening to a podcast he was on recently, and I mean, all the memes are true about him. Like they were like, this guy's got 400-some million in the bank, but he's walking around like how kids do in high school with shorts and t-shirts and like these fancy shoes. I'm like, there ain't nothing wrong with that. I like that.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah, to each his own. I mean, look how you want to look with your money. You don't have to. Everybody don't need to know what you have. Let me be a millionaire. Won't nobody know.
It's a wrap. Oh, it's a wrap. I tell you what, if I become a millionaire, only time people will ever see me on the computer or on the internet is on my podcast. I ain't doing anything else. I'm not doing a thing else. I'm not on Snapchat no more, Instagram. No. I'm deleting all those accounts. I'm not. You know what? There was a video from the Super Bowl parade. This photographer was taking pictures of the quarterback Matthew Stafford and his wife on the stage that they were at. She fell off the stage and she broke her spine. And the quarterback of the Rams, Matthew Stafford, and his wife have agreed to pay for her medical expenses. But here's the thing. Now people are going back into her Twitter account and looking at all the racist things that she has said in the past. And now she has deactivated an account. And she's probably not going to ever get a photography opportunity or photography paying job, or at least a paying job that she was getting at the Super Bowl parade. She's not going to get that anymore. No. So it's just things like that where it's like, ooh, man, people are always watching you no matter what.
They are. I think I saw that with the City Girls and Nicki Minaj, where somebody had asked Nicki Minaj in an interview, like, why you never did a feature with them? She's like, because they don't like me, because their past tweets was horrible. I'm like, if you want to work with somebody, you might want to delete those tweets. Like, yeah,
no, for sure. And people see, and that's the thing. In the pandemic, people had time to do all this stuff. Now it's like people still find time to do that type of stuff. Like people used to always say like, ain't nobody got time for that. No, who is it? People got time to look back at receipts. I know I do sometimes, and I'll go back and I'll look. Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too. I looked up Summer Walker when she was saying she had social anxiety, and then I know that she had created her own cleaning business, all types of stuff. I'm like, oh, she interesting.
I mean, it's a crazy world sometimes. It's a crazy world just thinking about when it comes to like things like that. Like people always just assume that celebrities and people on the internet all the time just have time to talk to anyone and everyone and anyone on the internet, or just respond back to comments. It's just like negative energy. It's just
it is, and they don't see them as people.
Yeah. At the end of the day, just people. Just like you and I put our pants on the same way. Might just be a different foot first. It's the same way, and it's just amazing how people on the internet can be. They can be just so evil sometimes.
They can, and I want to grow as a platform, but I think about that. Like the larger my platform gets, could I handle some of those some of those comments, because even on Twitter, I think I posted one time something about Biden. I think it was something about pandemic or something, vaccination or whatever. And somebody was like, you need to lose weight. I'm like, what does this have to do with vaccination?
What is that? That has nothing to do with the vaccination. Like, and that's one of those situations where I feel like people would just be like, all right, well, let me go on their page real quick. Let me see what they look like. And let me find one thing that might be out of whack, out of the picture, and let me get you on it. And sometimes it's funny. Sometimes just like, we're talking about the vaccine, and that weight capacity has nothing to do with the vaccine, point blank, period. So that, it just comes to a thing of ignorance when I look at it like that. There's no reason at all for you to be talking to me like that. No reason.
I block people now. I used to get mad, and I just block people now.
Oh yeah, the block and mute button are very heavy as I've gotten older. When I was in my 20s, like, what the hell do I need to use this for? I can just unfollow somebody. But now it's like, okay, well, this person's talking reckless, but he happens to be my family. So let me just mute him for 30 days, and then let's see how he is in March.
I unfollow for a little bit.
The mute button is, I love the mute button on Instagram. To me, I've gotten off Instagram more and more and more and more over the years. There was actually a certain point where I just deleted my Instagram because I hate the flexing on the internet. Like there's a couple of things, the high fashion stuff where someone just so happens to have a Gucci shirt and this girl's got a Gucci bag, and they just flooding it all over the internet. But it's like, I know how you live. You're not T.I. and his wife. Like, you can't post like that. Like, you can't do that. You're not Offset Cardi B. You can't do that. You can try, but like, don't portray a lifestyle that you don't have on the internet. That's my biggest thing. That, and like flexing. This is weird, but flexing during Christmas. Like, if you're a parent and you post your Christmas tree and you got literally like a shitload of presents, I don't like that, because there's a family out there, there's a mom, there's a dad out there that couldn't do that much for their family, and they're looking at it like, damn, I got my son what he needed, but like, look what they have. And I never want anyone to feel like they're not doing enough for their family or their children. To me, that's just ridiculous. Like, if you're putting in work yearly basis and you're doing what you can for your children, you're putting smiles on their faces. Just because they didn't get no PS5, the newest Xbox, Nintendo Switch, but you got them that favorite jersey they wanted, the favorite player. You got them a video game they enjoy. You got them a gift card to Apple or iTunes, and they get to get the app or whatever they wanted. Like, that's what matters.
Right.
But the fact that we have to, parents out there, and I don't mean to knock those parents, but at the same time, I'm like, you got to think about your friends. I'm sure there's plenty of girlfriends who have talked out there and I'm like, hey, you know what? Like, I don't like how you did that with your son and posting those pictures, because we've had those talks before, right? How, like, I can't do that much for my son or my daughter, and then I see that. It's like, I don't know. It's just one of those things to me. I just, post a tree. Post a tree with the family in front of the tree, and all the little ornaments and all the decorations. But the present part, I don't know. It's just...
How many views and likes is that going to get though? Like, I think most people do it for the views and likes, and I feel like what you're describing plays a part in a lot of people's mental stress, because they're trying to keep up with people that aren't even, like, they're trying to keep up with other people's fallacies. This is not even reality, but people are depressed and envious over somebody else's fantasy.
Yeah, it just I started to feel this way probably like 2014, 2015. Then I moved to Ohio in 2016, and just going on the internet, like, that's all you saw was like, the designer shades, designer shoes,
This month, CBS 3 Designs will be highlighting famous TV shows. Make sure that you check us out on Etsy. Type in CBS 3 Designs and get to shopping.
$400 Jordans, this and that. It was like, first of all, if you're wearing $400 Jordans, you need to be put in jail. I think any shoe that's that expensive, just put it away. You put it away, you know? And then when it's worth like $1.5 million 10 years later, all right, flex about it now. Flex about how you kept it that long. Right. But like, if you're wearing these $400 shoes, it's like, hey, you're an idiot. Like, that's some people's rent right now. Like, I just like, everybody's different, but to me, I can't stand seeing. You have $400 shoes on. For what? Like, goodness. Now, ladies with
stock.
Yeah, like some Bitcoin, something, you know, like so. But like, you know, I will say, and this might be biased, but I love when the women look like they have these very expensive heels, and they might not be just because they know how to shop first and foremost, and they look like these crazy expensive shoes. And I remember asking, man, these heels look expensive. Nah, got them from like H&M, $30. Oh, okay. So you know how to do. You know how to do. Where men, they just like, yeah, I got these $400 pair of Jordans. I'm about to wear them to the club. Okay, now they're about to get messed up, and you're gonna try to sell them. You're probably gonna get about $160. So I hope that night was worth it. I hope it was worth it.
Well, to man's defense a little bit, you guys' clothes cost way more than ours. Like, just when I shop for my husband, it's like almost 3 times more. Like, I can get a full like season collection and only compared to one outfit for him. Like, I don't understand why you guys' clothes are so expensive.
I don't get it either, and I don't fall into it. I love my t-shirts. Not nice shirts and nice clothes to begin with, but I try not to by any means go above my means or above what I, you know. When it comes to shoes, I don't buy Jordans because if they're that expensive for me to buy and then I'm gonna wear them and my clumsy ass walking around, it's just not even gonna be worth it. But you know, like, I love jerseys. When I was in Syracuse, New York, I had a jersey plug, getting jerseys for cheap, and I used to love that. But I'm a t-shirt guy. I have so many t-shirts at this point, you know, when it comes to podcasts, whenever we do an episode or any content, I'm like, did I wear that shirt recently? Oh, I did? Okay, I'll wear this in March then, or maybe in April, and I'll put it to the back of the rotation. But I don't even have a rotation. It's like whatever is on top of the laundry basket.
Yeah, that's what I'm wearing today.
Yeah, right. You know, oh, damn, that one looks nice. I wore that 3 weeks ago. All right. Let me pull this one out now. Every time, it's ridiculous.
So, in the survey I sent you for the topics, and just tell me a little bit about yourself, I laughed so hard when you said being a minority in the suburbs. I don't know why that was funny to me. I don't know if it's just because how you explained it, but I recently moved from Chicago to like Lafayette, Indiana, so I know that's an adjustment for me. So, like, I just want to know, like, are you adjusting to the suburbs? Did you come from? Are you originally from the city?
So, where I grew up, it was Allentown, Pennsylvania, and it is. When I grew up, it was a terrible neighborhood. From what I hear, I haven't been out there recently. What I hear, they're definitely going through gentrification. So that could be good or bad, by any means. But I mean, it was a bad area, and it wasn't until I think I was like 10 or 11. I was living with my mom, and we were living in Lancaster, PA, which is what people know as the Amish country, but that's outside of Lancaster City. Lancaster County is very Amish. When you get into Lancaster City, it is just like how I described downtown PA. It's typically bad neighborhoods. And there was 2 shootings within 10 days or 2 weeks of the radius, like block, 2-block radius of our house. And that's when my mom was like, "Yeah, we gotta get out of here." So we moved into the suburbs of Montgomery County in Pennsylvania, which is probably about half hour, 45 minutes from Philadelphia. And that was an adjustment, because you go from like a city school in Lancaster City, even when I was in elementary and middle school, like you go through a city school where the curriculum is not as high as it would make the school curriculum is not as high as it would be in the suburbs. So I struggled. Then I found out when I was in 7th and 8th grade that I had ADD. So I tried to use that to my advantage when in school, but it was really weird. I would say I moved in the suburbs 2001. I would say for the first 3 years, it was a tough adjustment, but then I was able to get some friends and kind of get a name for myself as a kid. Not anything big, just people knew who I was. And
right.
Going over people's houses. And then as I got into middle and high school, sports really helped me out a lot in terms of my name, just because I was very athletic at the time, and my peers appreciated and knew me from that. And then that's where the personality came, and it was just being like, someone who had friends of all different kinds. And I think at that time that was kind of weird. That was kind of weird for some people to be like, having friends from all over. You have the goth friends, and you have the white friends, you have the black friends, Hispanics. They all kind of they got meshed together at a certain point because everyone was cool with everyone. But it was definitely an adjustment. And I think it was probably better that I went the suburb route. Because I look at some of the people that I grew up with in high school, in elementary school and middle school before I moved, and they're not in the best shape, and they don't have the best of backgrounds because of some of the stuff that they have done in the past. I would have definitely fallen into that. There's no doubt about that. So I'm glad that I went the suburb route and was able to go to school out there. But I still do think about man, what would it have been like if I would have went to a city school and I wasn't in the suburbs? I think about that type of stuff all the time, but I'm happy how it turned out.
Do you think that played a part into your adventurous spirit, where you're okay with relocating, essentially like a fresh start, right?
Kinda, yeah. A lot of my relocating was because of work. I worked for the cinema eatery. That was like a movie theater and a restaurant back in 2012, and I was there for 8 years. 8 years, 1 month, and 17 days. I'm not really counting or anything, but I was there for a while, and I had manager, server, training team, opening up stores, and that at that time when I went to the cinema eatery, I also had friends who just graduated college, stuff like that. So me working at this spot and doing what I was doing kind of felt like I was in college or in school, because I was there for a long period of time. So they helped me relocate from Ohio to Syracuse, and that was fun, because I tell you right now, at 32 years old, I would have never in my life ever imagined living in Columbus, Ohio, or Syracuse, New York. Mainly because, as a sports fan, I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, University of Michigan, and they're rivals, Ohio State. And I can't even believe I just said that whole school's name because of the rivalry. But the fact of the matter is, it's just, I would have never imagined living there. But I've always wanted to leave the area that I grew up in and went to high school in, because I just want to do better for myself. And I saw it help other people, with their journey in life, that I was like, man, I could do this too. I could definitely do this. So, I think that made me into a better person. And I still see people back home, and like, man, I wish I would have moved, or, and did my own thing. And I'm like, I mean, well, you still, you might have a kid or you might have a family, so you might have to talk to them about relocating and doing something different. But also realize it's not always greener on the other side. It is not always greener on the other side. So, when I was in Ohio, I was all by myself. I didn't know anybody out there. I knew people from the job, but it was just from word of mouth. So I had no social circle out there. And mentally, that messed me up a whole lot because I was like, man, like, I don't know if I can do this. I really don't know if I can do this. And then I was able to relocate to Syracuse, and it was a little better. You know what? No, it was a lot better. I got a circle, a family circle, or a friend circle. Knew people there prior before moving, and the store made me feel at ease and with the relocating. So, but you learn about yourself so much. I mean, so much what you can and cannot do physically, mentally, where your willpower is. You just learn a lot. You learn a whole lot.
I agree with that. But you said earlier that you weren't married, but you did mention that you have a girlfriend that lives far from you. In New York.
Yeah, so, that was one of the toughest things. When I was in Syracuse, I lost my job, and trying to find a job that paid similar to that was very tough. This was like August of last year. And then it got to the point where paying for rent and saving were literally just going by. And so I hit up some family and I said, hey, can I stay with you until I can get back on my feet? And that was able to work out. And that's why I'm out in Maryland now. But now it's just living with family now. It's you just think about old times, looking at old pictures, me with hair, my senior year of high school, like stuff like that was crazy. But with my lady, it's tough. It's very tough. Try to see each other, a couple times a month. Okay. It doesn't always happen that way, just based on schedule. She owns her own business, and she's one in her business. So when she works, she's working 5-6 days a week, so it's tough. And then with my job, and then we're also with the podcast editing. The free time it gets scarce sometimes. Like sometimes, there's certain nights 8-9 o'clock, and I'm like, all right, let's tone it down. Let's stop editing. Let's stop doing podcast stuff. Get ready for work tomorrow. Get ready for content tomorrow. Call the lady. But then there's times where you're like, man, if I just do this for another hour, it'll be all good. And I had to learn that sometimes, you can just put that stuff down. You can always get back to that stuff. But making sure that you always have time for your lady. Lately it's been very rough lately, just because we haven't seen each other in some time. I think since Christmas.
Oh my.
Yeah, but steady contact, and definitely going to see her soon because I miss the shit out of her right now. So I will be seeing her hopefully within the next week or two. But it's tough. People talk about it all the time. I tell people this all the time. They're like, "How do you have a girlfriend in another state and this and that?" I'm like, it's tough. It's tough. It's something that I struggled with when I moved from Syracuse to Maryland. That was a tough adjustment. That's one thing. She didn't want that, but I said, you got to think about it. This is going to be better for us in the future. This is going to be better for us in the long run. So whatever you do, just stay there with me. Stay there with me. We're gonna make this happen. But it's definitely hard. It's definitely hard. I will not argue.
Well, long distance is challenging, but the fact that you guys are sticking together and sticking it out, to better each other, individually, then when you come back together collectively, you'll be a stronger unit. So I think in the end, it's worth the sacrifice. You guys just, hold in there, keep in there.
It's tough. Trust me, there's times where it's just like, man, I wish he just lived right down the street. I could just go right down the street, get some dinner, hang out for the whole day. But that's the goal. That's the goal. And I'm sure on both sides, there's tons of temptation on whatever it is. But you got to keep your eye on the prize and realize what you want at the end of the day. So, it's a tough one. Hopefully, we can write a book about it. That'd be nice, man.
It would be nice. You can help other people that have long distance relationships.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're 3.5 hours. I know a lot of people are 12 hours.
Yeah.
Day ahead.
Distance is distance. If you can't see the person every day, it's rough.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have it easier than most, but like those wives who are waiting for their husband that's in military forces.
Yeah.
Another country. Like, I couldn't imagine that. I could not imagine that. That is just crazy. That is crazy. And that takes a lot of commitment.
Not even if they're gonna retire home.
Yeah. You don't know. And that's scary. Because you're putting all your eggs in one basket. You may have had kids, married, it's crazy. I don't know. I think people getting married is awesome. I'm not a big person on marriage. I don't think I ever necessarily want to get married. It's something that me and my lady, we've talked about. Like, it's cool if we were married, but that's not going to define us by any means. And it's not going, it could build a lot more stress or it could build a lot more happiness. But if you're happy where you're at in your relationship, I think that's the best way to look at it. But if you think you need a ring to make things better, I guess to each his own.
Okay, so recently Nick Cannon kind of said something around that. I don't know if you read about his stance where he said that monogamy is selfish and and like almost like an ownership. Like what is your thoughts on marriage as a whole?
I mean, I'm a fan for it.
Okay.
I definitely think if people want to get married, by all means, do it. But I mean, there's just a lot that goes to it. There's a lot of paperwork for it. You got to set yourself up. I mean, you got to set yourself up, and be sure that this is who you want to be with. Because whether it's family or friends, I've seen marriages come and go, and I see what it does to people when it doesn't go right, and I hate seeing that out of people. That's one side of a person I don't want to see, because it's sad. It's sad. For as much as you want to be in love forever and be with your partner forever, it's not always like that, and I hate to see that happen to people. And like I said, the paperwork's a big lot, from name changes to who's gonna have what in their name, all of it that comes with that. That tweaks me a different way. I don't like that. Granted, I'm sure there's I know that there's people out there and people I know who are able to have those type of conversations, no problem. But for me, I don't see it happening in the near time future. But if it were to happen, I'm gonna have fun with it, just like the next person,
right.
Just like the next one.
Right.
But as of right now,
and that's okay. I even though I'm married, I never wanted to be but then I found someone that, that I could see spend the rest of my life with. But growing up, I never wanted to get married. Never, because the same thing as you. Like I was around so many like divorces and separations, and I'm just like, what are we doing all this for? Just to break up in a couple of years anyway? Like,
and it's like, I don't want my partner to feel pressured into changing their last name, or maybe having two last names.
She don't have to change her last name to be
right. You're absolutely right. She does not have to.
Right.
But like, I don't want her. I don't want her to feel obligated. Like she's gonna have to take my last name. I just don't like. That's one thing, Like, for instance, with my last name, in our family, I believe there's only 4 or 5 more Lomans in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Would I like to add more? Yeah, but if my lady doesn't want that, she doesn't want to be a Loman, well, that's perfectly fine. If you want to keep your last name, that's perfectly fine. But I feel a lot of people get stressed out by that. Like, oh, now I got to be a Jones. Like, I was a Smith all this time. And it's like, you don't have to be a Jones. You can be a Smith Jones. You can be a Jones Smith. You can just continue to be a Smith. Like, so.
Right.
I just hate the stress that it brings to people, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about happiness.
Right. Well, I think that it's only stressful if your mate is pressuring you to change your name. So, like, I feel like if a guy is like you don't have to change your name and you get married, then it's fine. But if you're like a male that's so tough on, name and lineage and things like that, like I can see how that can become an issue, because just like there are marriages that don't survive or pressures in marriage, there are also triumphs to it as well. I feel like it grew me up in a lot of ways. Like, it really did. If anything, not to be as selfish, and to learn how to compromise and blah blah things, things of that along that line. But I don't know. Like, I'm happy that I changed my mind.
Yeah.
I am. I'm elated with that choice. It's probably one of the best choices I've ever made.
Do you think it changed you in like a good or bad way, or more so a good way?
I want to say both, because when I first got married, I was kind of really just wrapped up in that and kind of lost my personality because I was so busy trying to compromise till I, compromise my way out of myself. So, in the like maybe about the 5th or 6th year in, 5th or 6th year, I realized that. And I was unhappy, and he realized that and was like, but I married you because I like that person. I get compromising, but don't change. Please don't change for me. You know what I'm saying? So he met me in the middle, because he didn't realize that I was doing that, nor did he ask me to do that, but I'm following the social constructs of a wife. I have to be subservient. I have to do this. My dreams have to go on hold. I don't have children either, mind you. So, my whole life was him. You know what I'm saying? So, after I realized that, he kind of gave me the space to reintroduce myself to me, to myself, and I feel like now I've learned balance of compromising and not being selfish. Sometimes it's okay to be a little selfish if I want to go somewhere by myself, or if I want to do something for me. It's okay for me to be in a relationship with him and myself simultaneously. And I feel like when I came to that point, it wasn't as stressful for me anymore, and it actually improved our marriage, because now he has his wife with her own individuality too, and I didn't look for him anymore to validate me, because that was a lot of pressure too, asking somebody to validate you 24/7. That's a lot of pressure. So when the pressure was off of him and I'm validating myself, and then we come and validate each other every once in a while, it balanced things out.
Okay. Yeah, I see the balancing for sure.
Yeah.
In a lot of marriages, and I love that. I love that. I feel like as a husband, you got to be there for your lady in ways that you did not expect when you were maybe just girlfriend and boyfriend.
True.
And vice versa. And even if that takes like career sacrifices, if that takes, time away from certain friends, you got to make it work. You got to make sure it works in the household. The household is really what glues everything together. I love the balance of marriages that I've seen. That's one cool thing about marriages, and just the fact that you just always have a best friend around you.
Yeah.
Best friend to contact. When I was younger, I would be like, man, these people talking about best friends. Like, a girl can't be a best friend. I'm thinking this at like 7, 8 years old. Now at 32, I'm like, I don't know what that 7, 8-year-old was talking about. That 7, 8-year-old Jem was an idiot.
Well, he started off as my best friend. He is technically my best friend. So that's what makes it even better.
I think that's so cool. I love that, like that aspect. When I see people, couples post that, like, always being my best friend. Like I said, when I was younger, I was like, nah, like, so-and-so's my best friend, not some girl, And now as I get older, I'm like, total sense. I exactly, like, when I had an ex tell me that, like, years ago, like, you're my best, I was like, okay, I get it now. I get what they're saying now. I get it.
Okay, maybe.
It finally makes sense now. Yeah. When they say it takes men longer to mature, that's a perfect example right there.
It do take y'all a minute, but that's okay. We're patient.
We appreciate that.
So your background, Juicebox. This is your podcast. Now, what's it about? Like, what do you talk about?
So, I had a plan. As I said earlier, I talked about doing radio podcast since I was in 8th grade, so it's like 13 years old. Mm-hmm. But I never had a premise of it. So back in I think it was 2010, 2011, I was in college and I was like, what? I want to make a radio show with my friends. And we got the logo together. I think we tried. Got the bio, everything together. We got a Facebook page for it. And then I never went through with it because I never had any of the equipment. I never had any of the equipment. I didn't even know how to start. But I was like, we just got the idea out there, so we're going to throw it out there. I don't even remember what we called it at the time. And then I'm in Syracuse, and it's 2016. I was like, I got a perfect idea for a podcast, radio show. It's going to be called the Juicebox Podcast. And I was like, hey, it sounds great. Then I never went through with it again. I just, I don't know if it was the personnel at the time, or I don't know, it just wasn't ready. Still didn't have the equipment. So then the pandemic hits, and a buddy of mine brought me on his show that he was starting up, and it was fun. Just being as a guest, it was fun. And I was like, I gotta do this. I have to do this. And at the time, my buddy just lost his job, and as a severance pay, they gave him a work laptop. And I was like, so what you want to do with your old laptop? You might as well just send it over here. And he was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do that. And I was like, oh, word? Okay. So he gave me this nice MacBook. And from there, I was just kind of figuring it out. And then I started just doing random content. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start the podcast now. Didn't have personnel to do it with. Was just gonna do whatever, and then one thing went to another. We started doing it, and now we're 111 episodes in, along with a bunch of different separate content. So as I mentioned that I worked at a cinema eatery, we have a series about me and some of the people who worked at the cinema eatery, and that's always good fun. When I first started out, I did this series where I was just talking to friends about some stuff that happened in the past with them, whether it was mental health or funny stories or something serious. And that was just like they were guinea pigs. They were guinea pigs because I just wanted to record stuff and edit it and see how well I could do it. And then I was like, man, I kind of like this editing stuff more than just talking on the podcast. Like, I like this editing stuff. And I've always, I've been fortunate to have friends and family, always keep in contact with people, always be around people. But I do like being alone. I do like being by myself, because when it comes to editing and stuff like that, I'm in my own zone. I flip my phone around. I don't care who contacts me. It's on silent. I'll look at it in 2 hours. Once I get done with what I'm doing, bam, then I can look at the phone and be like, oh, cool, blah, 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 blah. But, everyone who's on the podcast, there's Trent, there's Mike, and then there's Josh. Josh is actually somebody I knew the longest. I knew him since I was in 3rd grade. We actually just reconnected on Facebook during the pandemic. So just talking to him, through text and Facebook Messenger, and just catching up on life, I was like, man, he'd be great for the podcast. But we were already like 80 episodes in by the time, I wanted to get him on the podcast. So he's been the newest member. Trent and Mike actually, somebody I went to high school with, and he lives in California. I mean, he's big into crypto. He's big into politics and current events. So we go to him when it comes to crypto and news and stuff about politics, because he's able to explain it to us into a manner that we can appreciate and then give our band to it. Josh, he's really into video games and sports and also current events. So he has a good say on that too. And Trent, he's somebody that I didn't go to high school with. He's from Center City, Philadelphia, but I went to high school with his cousin. And anytime me and Trent would talk, I was just like, man, I like this guy. He's a smart guy. So I got him on the pod, and I got him on as just like a friend guest, but then it turned into something serious. And, he has just such a great humor for things that I know I can bounce it off him, and he can tell me, like, man, that shit's whack. Yo, that shit's kind of dope. So those three, the fact that none of them are similar, they're all different. That's what I wanted for the podcast. And so, from sports, current events, cryptocurrency, finances, politics. We just talk about a lot of random stuff. Depending on when we do an episode, it used to be every episode used to come out every Monday and Friday. We used to do 2 episodes a week. Now we just get it down to 1. And those episodes are a lot more in depth now. Those episodes, you see a lot of us, our chemistry has gotten better. And, the toughest thing now is that, we're kind of out of the pandemic. I do that with quotations because, depends on the state, it depends on the store, county. So, all these guys, they work or they go to school, or they have another business and they're just busy. So sometimes we're not all together, and that upsets me because I know what they bring. I know what they all collectively bring to the table. I know when all 4 of us are on and I'm editing, I am behind the scenes laughing my ass off because there's some of the stuff that we do that I'm like, man, can I put that out there or can I just save this for later? So you got to know your audience and what they want to listen or hear to. But it's been fun. One of the biggest things that I have told people when they said they're going to start a podcast is just do it. Because it took me almost 20 years to actually do it from the first time I thought about it. 2003 to 2022. Ideally it was like 17 years or 18 years, but it took me a long time to finally do it. And now that I did it, I'm so mad at myself because I'm like, damn, we could be at episode 1200 at this point if I started way back when I wanted to. But sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. You just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. And I think that's one of the biggest parts. Is I've talked to so many people who've been on our podcast or heard about our podcast. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I'm about to do one. I'm like, if you ever need help, let me know. Like, I'd love to help you out. I'd love to be on your content to help it grow. I'm not going to say that I'm going to bring thousands and thousands of views, but, you know, from the fan base and the type of people that we have watching our show, maybe they might go to their show. So I always try to help. I'm not going to sound like some pod father or the creator of this content, but I know a little bit about it, so I always like to help out any chance I can with people. And I think, you know, I think that goes that it's a 180 effect. It's one of those things where you help somebody and they're gonna help. And then there's somebody else that is with their content but might retweet or might repost your stuff just because they like your content too. So it's been so much fun. It's honestly been so much fun, and I can't wait to see it keep growing and growing and growing. Honestly.
Yeah, I caught one of your episodes. I think it was the last one where you guys were talking about. I think the question posed was Black History Month still necessary? And you're saying,
yes.
I thought that was an interesting question. So I pondered. I'm like, I think it is, but how it's presented needs to change. I think that it's only focused on trauma and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. That's it. You know, like I don't see it actually being a celebration of Black history. It's just remind us, oh yeah, y'all had it tough in the past, but everything wasn't all bad, you know. And I don't think that part is highlighted at all in the month of February.
I agree. I think too many people think about the chains and shackles and the tough times, but like we have to really appreciate these people for doing what they did. So we're here, like me and you on this podcast, like we're here able to talk about stuff.
Right.
If this was 1940, we wouldn't have been able to do this.
Right.
With the you know, technology not being what it is and all that, obviously, but like, first of all, as a biracial, I don't even know if we would be in the same room, to keep it real. I don't even know if we would be in the same building, same state, same city.
Right.
Everything was so much different. You know, my dad would probably have been hung, and my mom, who is Caucasian, would have been tortured because of having sex with a Black man. Like, I think about stuff like that, but then I also think about, okay, but where we are now, where are we at now? Okay, where are we at now? Where a Black woman can have her own podcast. A Black woman can have her own opinion. A Black woman can say something, or a woman in general can say something without a man telling her that she cannot say that or she cannot do that. We're in 2022 now. We can do that.
Right.
Obviously, there's some restrictions still, and you know, we obviously not want to get into that, but it's, you know, we have to be thankful for where we're at, and how we got here, and we have to thank those people in the past. And it's not just, you know, like you said, the Malcolms and the Martins. There's plenty of people. Like, I'm still waiting for Harriet Tubman to be on that tournament. Okay.
Right.
I'm still waiting for that. Biden, come on. Like, a lot of people voted for you, and I'm not saying that the reason why I voted for you is so you can put Harriet on 20, but God damn it, that was one of the reasons. Okay. Like, that be, so it's things like that need, like, you know, and from statues being bad statues, that like Robert E. Lee, that was up for so long, now being taken down. Like, people are starting to wake up. Should they have woken up years ago? Absolutely. But we can't do anything about that. We can't do anything about people starting to wake up now. If they want to wake up now, they want to realize that, you know, there are two Americas, that there is still privilege. Then we need to have these discussions. We need to make sure that this is an issue. But, you know, with Black History Month, like in that conversation, it's like we just need to highlight it more.
Yeah.
Like we don't need. Listen, who is it? I think it's like TBS. They're showing nothing but like Black. It's like, okay, that's cool, but why not have like a show on a roundtable discussion on how we can make society better? How, like, I just, we can reminisce on these old movies all we want, but like, let's make it like, hey, let's start something up for reparations. Let's have a talk about that. Let's make this more relevant. Listen, it's already been relevant for hundreds of years. Let's make it so relevant that that's literally like a TV station name, Reparations TV. Like it's just something, like, it just, there's so much that still needs to be done, but there's so much that needs to be still appreciated. But we need to keep moving forward when it comes to stuff like this.
Right.
And I just, I could go on and on. It just needs to be, I just feel like it needs to be appreciated a lot more than it should be.
Like, include us in our own month. We're excluded to a sense in our own month.
Yeah.
The first day of February, Whoopi Goldberg gets suspended, and now we're talking about if Jewish is a fake or a race for the first 2 weeks, damn near, of Black History Month.
And it's like, why? And
not that it's not important, but that was like the main thing for 2 weeks, half of the month, 28 days.
Put that on hold. Talk about it in the first week of March. You know what I'm saying? Put it on hold. Like, so it like that, and I don't like, and maybe it can go hand in hand, a Black History Month and Valentine's, they're all about love and appreciation. But we Valentine's needs to stop sharing the same month as Black History Month. But Black History Month in January. You know what I'm saying? Because what like, first of all, isn't Martin Luther King Day in January?
Yeah, it is.
So that's a start. We get rid of and then by putting Black History Month in January, I know it's in October, but then we abolish Columbus Day. We just straight up abolish it.
Why is that a day? Why is that a day?
And the fact that people are like protesting about that, like this past Columbus Day, people were protesting on like streets or school, whatever. And I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're on the wrong side of history. First of all, you're not believing history.
Right.
And you're just going on what your beliefs are, or what maybe you saw Trump tweet before he got his Twitter ban, whatever. Like, why is that a holiday? Why aren't we even what? Why? Why? I remember as a kid in school, I'm like, what the hell are we talking about? Like, I remember reading in books that he didn't discover that. So why are we giving him American holiday? Why are we off for this day?
Because he put the flag on the ground. He put the flag, so he got but I thought it was, I want to say it was Africans that first came across the land and was like, oh, this is nice, and then went about their business. I want to say I read that somewhere.
Yeah, you know what? Our ancestors probably, they looked at it and was like, nah, we don't want this land. It's
not ours.
Honestly, a bad choice at the time, because now, I mean, look where we're at now. But at that time, they probably like, man, we can't build shit around here. Let's go down the road. we can't build here. The soil's terrible. They'll never have anything functioning, and 1,000 years from now.
Well, even if we did take it, Christopher Columbus would have came and stole it. So it doesn't even matter. They killed all the Native Americans to take their land and then gave them casinos later on. And then we have a holiday. We have Columbus Day and Thanksgiving to commemorate the massacre of Native Americans.
And the worst part about that is that, like, when I think of Thanksgiving, I don't think of that. I'm thinking about that ham, turkey, if you're into it, gravy, stuffing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not thinking about no damn pilgrims. I don't care what they did. I like this food on this table. And I have a better spread on my table than what they had back in the day. And those nasty dry squash. Didn't even have. I mean,
like my food's better than yours.
Sweet potato back then. I really want to know how food tasted back then. Like, there's no way. Well, first of all, I can guarantee you, ham was still dry back then. Ham was probably.
Was there ham back then? Like, was there like random pigs just walking
Actually,
through the
yeah.
land?
Oh, I'm sure. I bet you there were pigs back then, but they probably didn't know how to cook it. They didn't even know about bacon back then. Whew. They didn't know about bacon, coffee. How did they
more
live?
Vegetarian. It had to be more vegetarian back then.
Yeah, that's probably when vegan. It's probably the first set of vegans back then. Is eating nothing but squash and potatoes, not chicken, and spam.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You said spam. You say spam.
Probably wasn't made back then. I feel like spam was made. I remember when I saw the first can of spam, and I smelled it. What the hell is this?
I love spam.
You like spam, really?
Well, I quit eating pork, so I don't eat it anymore. But I used to love spam. I
remember at someone's house, smelled it. What the hell is this? As I got older, people were like, "Yo, spam's great." I'm like, nah, I just can't get past the taste. Just can't get past the taste. Can't do it. I always get this saying wrong, but I remember that I'm going to get it right thanks to Trent on my podcast. Different strokes for different folks.
That is true. I used to love spam. Throw it in that skillet. Burn it on both sides almost, crisp it up, put it on like some white bread with some Miracle Whip and a slice of cheddar cheese. Slice that in half, everything.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. If I would have came in your house and I smelled spam, I probably just would have went outside.
Bye.
Yo, can I make a... I can't do it.
So you thought about it for 5 seconds, was like, nah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll come by later for a card game.
So here at BYOK, we have a staple question, and that is, if you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be and why?
Random. And somebody asked me this back in like high school or middle school. I would say random, and I still say it to this day. From the things that we post on our Instagram account, from the stuff that I post on my personal accounts, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I was younger. People would be surprised at some of the stuff that I like, just because I don't know. They may not. I can't see liking it. Okay, well, I like it. And I'm just a random guy with a lot of random knowledge. Not trying to make myself sound smart. Just got random knowledge, and I just there's just certain things and stuff in life that I love. Like I love Mike and Ike's. I know that company came out like 1908, but I love Mike and Ike still. And to an average person, some of these Gen Z kids don't even know what Mike and Ike's are. And there's other people who are listening to this and they'll be like, what the hell made him say that? And it's just, I'm a random person. I'm a random person.
That candy is good, and I've sacrificed it sticking to my teeth every time I eat it. I love my teeth.
Oh, man, they're great. When I was younger, they were weird. They would always stick to the teeth, but I don't know. Maybe I have a secret way of eating. I don't know. They don't. Unfortunately, I have that problem. Yeah, I'm a random person. I just I have random ways of thinking, random ways of doing things, and I just say I'm a one random biracial bald guy.
Which was part of your explanation or your description.
Yeah. One random ass biracial bald guy. That's me.
Nothing wrong with random at all.
I love it. I love being
diverse. Yeah.
Love
So, where can people find you? Like Instagram, or where can they find your podcast?
So we have a page on Facebook. We have a page on Instagram. I want to say we post daily, but it all depends on the day. There's usually like 2 days out of the week where we don't post. It's been Friday and Saturday as of recent where we don't post, just because we've noticed it's a time for everyone where they may be on but not as much, or may not have that much time in the past that we've seen to look at our content. So but we're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Pandora, Spotify, basically anywhere where you listen or hear podcasts, we're on there. And I will say this, definitely on YouTube, we always have at least one video posted every week, if not multiple videos, whether it's like deleted conversations or a conversation from a podcast that got shortened into its own video based on request. And we're everywhere. Shout out to Trent, Mike, and Josh that are on the podcast. Great guys. Appreciate them. Talk to them daily. And if it weren't for them, we definitely would not have the success of this podcast that we have right now.
Yeah, I love that. I like the episode. I subscribe. So make sure, listeners, you subscribe to the Juicebox podcast on YouTube. And what's your Instagram handle?
Instagram handle is juice_is_chillin'. It is I made that name in like 2008 on PlayStation. And still haven't changed it. It's still the same name I have on PlayStation whenever I go on. And I was changing my Instagram name, and I was like, what the hell should I change it to? And I looked up at my TV screen, and I saw my PlayStation name, and I was like, bingo, there it is. 19-year-old name. 19. I was 19 when I made it. The random keeps coming.
Hey, but that was a start. Now look what you're transition to. So, yeah. So you have any announcements, anything coming up in the near future?
We have a basketball podcast coming out the week of February 21st. When, I'm not too sure. Just depends on when everyone's ready. We have our third episode of the Cinema Eatery Chronicles coming out the 21st, Monday, February 21st. And episode 112 of the podcast should be out, I would say maybe even this week or next week.
Okay.
We're just what we're doing right now for the actual podcast episodes is just bringing some wonderful African American people who have something going on, whether it's a podcast, a clothing company, a good friend that always has some interesting stories going overseas. I mean, we wanted to make sure that this month was for them and highlighting what they have going on, just highlighting them, period, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's dope. That is what it's all about. And I just thank you for being on being on this episode and coming to the BYOK platform. This has been a very interesting and fun and random conversation.
Yeah, very random. Yeah,
yes, I love it.
Thank you so much for having me. Me and the guys really appreciate it. First of all, if they were on here, I don't even think they were up as I'm over here trying to see the I sent them your page. They just no one has responded yet. So yeah, these knuckleheads ain't up yet. So and one of them's also in California, so it's like 9 a.m. for him. But knowing him, he gets up at like 5 a.m. to look at cryptocurrency numbers. So yeah, I can see him tuning into this while looking up cryptocurrency numbers.
Okay, awesome. Well, listeners, I hope that you were left inspired, you were left rejuvenated, or with some different opinions, towards the end of this episode. And don't forget to be kind to yourself and kind to each other. Bye.